Episode 2 of The Golden Bachelor has arrived. We'll be breaking down all the highlights and which contestants were sent home. Hey everyone, this is Hippaberry and welcome back to Shared News. Today we will be breaking down episode 2 of The Golden Bachelor. At the start of the episode, we get to see the women's reaction to entering the Bachelor mansion for the first time. Sandra was a little concerned about sharing a tiny room with 4 women, which was a bit of a challenge. April called it Big Girl Camp and says she never liked camp. The women are so funny, especially the shot of them all chanting Gary's name in the shower. Faith feels a little nervous because she got the first impression rose and hopes to carry on what they could not finish. Host Jesse Palmer brings in the note for who will get the first one-on-one date, and it ends up being Teresa. All the ladies cheer for her. She says she is thrilled beyond belief and is a little scared. She says she was married when she was 18 years old. Before her husband Billy died, he wished that she get married again. Susan was even nice enough to curl her hair before Teresa's date with Gary. These contestants are besties, honestly. They love each other, they root for each other, and it's just a connection we haven't seen in previous Bachelor seasons. Gary was nervous because he has not gone on a first date for a while and is a bit out of practice. He says there's a lot riding on this first date. Gary pulls up in a blue old school roofless car and opens the car door like a gentleman for Teresa. It was Gary's first time driving on a California freeway and Gary's headlights were not turning on. The wind ends up ruining Teresa's hair because again, there is no roof on the car. Teresa offers words of encouragement and puts her hand on Gary's shoulder, which meant the world to him. Gary says she seems very sensitive and wants to get to know her more. They pull into an old school diner, which reminds Gary of his first job. Teresa says she felt a connection to Gary the first time she saw him. They kissed 2 times. Teresa talks about marrying her high school sweetheart. They were married for 42 years. Her husband passed away due to health of his kidneys. Neither of them expected for this to happen. She expected to live with him for the rest of her life. Gary related to the story. He didn't feel like breaking down and crying for once. Teresa understood the loss of a spouse. Gary says he likes Teresa a lot and she has a calm and peacefulness to her. They adorably share a milkshake together. Gary says, "Don't stop believing." Then all of a sudden, everyone in the diner starts dancing to the song. The couple starts dancing in the middle of the flash mob. Gary says tonight he felt promise and hope. He thinks Teresa could be his life partner and it would be comfortable. Gary gives a rose to Teresa and she gladly accepts. Teresa feels ecstatic and has hope now at 70 years old. The first group date arrives and they will be doing a romance novel cover shoot. The concept is that at any age, you can be sexy, attractive, and do whatever you want. The women run over to the wardrobe racks to select their outfits. Natasha puts on a funky groovy outfit that brings it back to the 70s. She is so funny. Gary is looking for the women to have a sense of humor. Gary puts on his long blonde wig and says it feels like he has a raccoon on his head. They pose for pictures with a leaf blower as Gary's hair flowed in the wind. Leslie was a bit upset that Natasha took the outfit she wanted, but Leslie made it work with her leather jacket. At one moment, Nancy started crying in her wedding dress costume. The last time she wore a wedding dress was when she got married, which caused her to feel all the emotions. She married her husband, Mark, who passed away 12 years ago. She remembers her wedding and how she felt, which was the best day of her life. She missed him. Gary and Nancy talk because he noticed during the photo shoot she wasn't herself. Nancy explains how she felt and how the wedding dress brought up good emotions. She hasn't worn a wedding dress in 36 years. Gary relates and shares a story of a moment he walked by a bakery and smelled cinnamon. It reminded him of his wife who would make cinnamon balls during Christmas. Gary says those moments come out of nowhere. Nancy says there is joy of remembering, but there's hope of moving forward. Nancy felt comfortable talking to Gary. Gary thought the women in the group date kept him on his toes. He is learning so many new and interesting things about the women on a deeper level. Gary and Leslie sit down, and Leslie says she got choked up due to seeing Gary's beauty within. Leslie also shows off her hearing aids in both ears and jokes Gary can whisper sweet nothings into her ear at any time. Gary said it was a darling moment and it spoke to how sensitive she is. Now it's time for Gary to give the group date rose. Gary grabs the rose and gives it to Nancy. Nancy says she connected to Gary and didn't expect to. She is looking forward to getting to know him even more. The next gathering is on Gary's birthday, and he strolls into the mansion where the women surprise him outside. Susan comes out of a big cake with confetti, and she immediately pulls Gary to the side to chat. She said she got up early to cook and listed out all the dishes she made. April dances in front of Gary and calls it her birthday special. Gary says Natasha is a great hugger, which reminds him of his wife. While speaking to the ladies, Teresa shares how attentive Gary is with everyone he speaks to. Faith finally gets the chance to chat with Gary and says she was bummed not to get the group date invite. She feels a little worried that she isn't keeping up with the ladies. Faith says she is different from the other girls as she likes to spend time in a t-shirt and flip-flops and likes to swim in the river, drink from the hose, which made Gary laugh. She says Gary makes her feel special every time and that he is beautiful. For the first time, we see Gary speak to Joan. She tells him about her husband that passed. She still has a hard time looking at her husband's pictures. Her husband told her she needs to be happy and to go find someone else. Gary said to not feel guilty, you just got to live. Joan says Gary is very thoughtful and he tries to see you, to connect with you. Gary gives Ellen a gift, even though it's his birthday. He gives her a framed photo of them from the photo shoot group date. Ellen says she feels so special and hasn't felt special in a really long time. It was one of the best gifts she has received. It's now time for the rose ceremony. The ladies file into the room dressed to the best. Gary looks at the group of women today and says they are all his friends. He says he appreciates everyone and has high, strong feelings for them all. He gives the first rose to Leslie and the last rose to Kathy. Gary begins to cry as he has to say goodbye to Peggy, Natasha, and Jeannie. Now, in next week's promo, we see Ellen and Gary going on a hot air balloon date. We hear Ellen say she is on cloud 9. We see shots of Teresa, Susan, and Faith crying. Kathy at one point walks away, seemingly not wanting to dish details on her relationship with Gary, and says in her confessional, quote, zip your lip. Edith says people are starting to get jealous. We hear Faith tearfully say, quote, I can't stay here any longer, which then we hear Gary say, I can't tell you how disappointed I am, but we are not certain who he is saying those words to. There were a lot of jump cuts, which is classic producer moves, so we have to keep that in mind. Finally, we see Gary giving a tearful goodbye as a contestant rides away in a car. Another big tease to what seems like a great season of The Golden Bachelor. All right, everyone, those are all the Golden Bachelor highlights we have for you today. Let us know what your guys' reactions are to the episode below. Are we going to see the women finally start to butt heads? It seems like in the promo we saw some women starting to do that because the numbers are winding down. The group is getting smaller and they need to start getting serious because one can only end up with Gary. And always remember before you go to please like this video and subscribe to our channel so you never miss out on any news updates. Once again, and as always, I'm your host, Hiba Berry. Thank you guys so much for watching and we'll see you next time.